Welcome to Let's Talk Learning Disabilities with Laurie Peterson. Laurie spends her days talking about dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, and ADHD. She talks to students and adults who have had a lifetime of academic challenges. She's here to share their stories along with other insights with you. So let's talk learning disabilities.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Let's Talk Learning Disabilities. This is Laurie, and I am very happy that you are here today. It is no secret to any of our listeners that I am a humongous fan of coaching, especially ADHD coaching, executive function coaching. I am a huge proponent. It's something I truly believe in and feel like can benefit every student, whether you have ADHD or not, because I just don't feel like executive function skills are something we're being taught or our kids are being taught. And they're probably the thing that most kids struggle with when they transition to college, because no longer do they have that support of their parents and the structure of their full school day. Now they're left to their own. So today, I have a very special coach. Laura's here with me from Rudder Coaching, and I'm super excited. We met at the educational consultant conference, and you guys got a little peek at what she does. She was on my little preview podcast that we did from the conference, but I had to have her back for a full episode. So Laura, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here and talk to your listeners.
Yeah, I'm so excited. So tell us a little bit about you and sort of what led you to what you do today.
Yeah, great. So I'm a college success coach. So I work with students who are already enrolled in college and really help them to make the most of their college experience, to thrive, not just survive, and to really, get out of the experience what they want. So some students, when I start working with them, they're struggling in some way. And then some students I work with, it's preventative. It's kind of like I want to make sure I'm starting out my college career on really good footing, building some really good systems. And so I work with my college clients on three main areas. One is time management. I call it different things, and that'll probably come out in our conversation, but known as time management. And then secondly, really helping them figure out their college to career plan. So what they want to major in, minor in, and then really what jobs this could lead to right after college, and then the long-term work. And then lastly, really helping them to develop their college self-confidence, which is different and has to kind of grow, different from high school self-confidence. That's the base, but then it grows into a new sense of self-confidence in college. So working with them to develop these skills, and they are skills. They need practice. Working with a coach like myself is I'm a different person than the parent, or the advisor. So it's really helping them to evaluate, what they're doing, why, what they're thinking, what's working, what's not. And this really comes out of, so I've been doing this now for about 5 years. And previous to this work, I was a high school college counselor. So I worked for 10 years with students and families on the college application process, helping them find good fits, all of that. Really intense work, which is so important. But I found that there wasn't enough time as a college counselor to really help students think about what it was going to be like in college, making the transition into college, regardless of where that was. And then I just had a lot of students who I worked with call me back up and say, Mrs. A, I'm struggling at my school, and I did fine in high school. What's going on? Did I, am I at the wrong college? That's kind of the question that they would come back to me as their college counselor with, like, do I need to transfer? Am I at the wrong college? And the more I started talking with these students, these graduates, it became clear that it was less about the college itself and more about their systems and habits and their mindset being there, and that some things hadn't really made the transition or kind of upgrade in terms of their skills. So I saw a need for it. I saw a need for students to have somebody to help them learn these skills in real time, while they're there.
Right.
And I often found, just like I'm sure, you've experienced, Laurie, is like when it's your parent, it's harder to really work with your college age student, right? These are closer to full adults. It's different than when they're in high school. And especially if you're living away from home, parent isn't seeing the day-to-day things, right? So I found that there was a real need for parents, from the parents' perspective, to know that their student is getting the support and the skill building that they need and not being the one to feel like they have to do that. So, so that's kind of the background. And then, I have my own kids. So my oldest is a high schooler. So now I'm really starting to think about not only his college process, but also like, is he equipped with the skills that he's going to need to be successful in college, wherever he goes? These executive function skills, which, we'll talk about this as we get into the conversation, but executive function, we often, like a lot of parents and students think about that just as like organizing or prioritizing, whatever. Executive function means managing your emotions. So, we just went through exams and it's like, we got to manage the emotions around this so that you can organize and put into, get a plan in place and actually follow the plan. So, anyway,
it's such a vicious cycle, because if you have poor executive function, right, then it creates a lot of stress, anxiety, overwhelm, and then you're not capable of then trying to produce anything that even is remotely organized or well managed. So it's such you've got to stop that cycle.
It's I talk about the procrastination cycle a lot. And the procrastination cycle is just an emotional cycle that that students get on, because it's all about relief now for, and the discomfort later.
Instant gratification.
Yes, exactly. And then as the time goes on, the discomfort that you displaced originally grows, because now the time is going by. And you have a lot of, emotions and thoughts in your heads about, I should have. Mm-hmm. And then that discomfort triples, quadruples, right? And so then when it comes time to actually, if the deadline is approaching, now you have to face a much bigger heap of discomfort. And so it's about managing the emotional choices. So anyway,
do you feel like it takes a little bit of maturity to understand that, along with, because here's the thing is that you procrastinate this paper or this project, and you're so mad at yourself. It's the last minute. You're throwing something together. It's not your best work, but you just want to get it done. You get it done. But do you always learn from that? No. Mm-hmm. No.
Right.
Is some of that come with maturity, or do you feel like you really, there are strategies now that we know that this happened, we're not going to just leave it to chance next time?
Right. Well, it is important. So in high school, a lot of the procrastination cycles that we get into don't have big consequences. Mm-mm. Because teachers, they don't schedule 5 tests in one day, or they don't, you're up late, mom wakes you up, you get to school. So you staying up until 3 a.m. to do work on a paper or something that you waited last minute to start, you have these safety nets in place. And so they don't feel the consequences of their procrastination. So it works. It actually works. I don't want to say they get away with it. I mean, this was me, get away with it. Their plan of starting late and going into the night, that pressure is actually very useful. It helps make decisions. It helps focus, right? It is a good tool to use a deadline to your advantage. And the consequences, especially in high school, we have safety nets that lessen the impact of the consequences. So maybe you're tired for the day, but you end up getting a decent grade, or your mom's upset, or your mom's tired, right? But that doesn't impact you, teen, right? Now, when it gets to college, a lot of times the same habits in place, and a lot of times they still don't really feel major consequences. And it works. I mean, this was me in college too. My procrastination, I had it down to a science, right? And it worked because the costs of it were worth the benefit of me not starting earlier, waiting till, right? And only until, but there's usually, so I don't know if this is maturity or this is just as you get older and the nature of the work in college, or the nature of like how you're being evaluated. So as you go up in the coursework, right? Professors aren't like, oh, you're a freshman. It's like, oh no, you're at the higher levels of these classes, and it doesn't matter like how much effort you put in or when, if your product isn't meeting the grade, it's like there's no discussion about it. You didn't do what you needed to do in terms of evaluating what you produced. So at some point, there's usually a moment where the waiting till the last minute and the pressure of the decision making, the consequences become greater than the benefit. So
Sure.
maybe that means they miss a paper in another class and now they get a low grade, or something happens in another class. They miss an exam. They sleep through an exam because the night before they were working on a paper. Or they miss a flight. I mean, this happens during final exam periods. They miss a flight. They don't turn something in, or there's a technical issue. They don't turn it in by the deadline, and that's it, right? So at some point, only until the consequence becomes greater than the cost becomes greater than the benefit, does it shift. And for me, this didn't happen until senior year of college, when I was working on my senior thesis, and I really my time management methods just started to really backfire. And I wasn't getting good, like the drafts that I would turn in were not high quality because I was doing it too last minute.
Right. You notice that consequence oftentimes too, by the time kids get to you or find you, that it's also they're now managing anxiety, depression, because they've let that they've beat themselves up over it, but they don't know how to fix it. And now it's created such a bigger issue than just procrastination.
Oh my gosh, it's so layered under so many. They make these things mean so much about themselves. They make them mean about what they're capable of. They make a lot of these consequences mean like they're in the wrong college, that they should transfer, that they're in the wrong major, that they're not smart enough. Or this can also happen. They make it mean that the professor's bad. They make it mean that the college is bad, the system's bad, it's somebody else's fault, right? So they don't take ownership of it. And they don't have that's the value of the coaching work, is that they don't have the time and space to evaluate truly where was their role, where were there things they couldn't control, they were out of their control, but let's take ownership for really how you were thinking and approaching this and your actions. And then going forward, what do you need to keep in mind for the next time this is? And then if there's learning from the experience, okay, then it's not a loss. It's not a total loss, right? You can take the hit, but then if you're learning from it and somehow it gets better in the future, right?
That's a win.
There's a win.
I think what I really like about what you do too is that you add that career and that piece in, right? Because so many of these kids not only are struggling with the day-to-day functioning, but they're also questioning, am I in the right major? Do I really want to do this? What do I want to do? I feel like nowadays it's so different than when I went to school. Like I just applied to a college. I didn't have to pick my major and apply to that specific college within the college. And wasn't so much pressure on me to make a decision. And I think now kids, I mean, when you're 17, 18, are you really ready to decide what you want to do for the rest of your life? No, but we're forcing them to. And so the fact that you address that, because we have worked with a lot of kids that, yes, the ADHD executive function, but they're still lost in what it is that they want to do. And you start to get to that point in your college career where you're like, I'm kind of spinning my wheels. Like you start to you feel hopeless.
Yeah, you feel rudderless. I mean, that's my business. That's my
100%.
company. Rudder. You feel rudderless of like I'm kind of in this spot and I'm floating, I'm lingering, right? I'm not moving backwards. I know I'm not moving backwards, right? But I don't necessarily feel like I'm moving forward, or maybe it's like more of like a crawl, or like I think I'm supposed to be going in this direction and I am, but it's not kind of a clarity, certainty, which
I'm not loving it.
Which is the confidence piece, right? Which is really critical for persisting through the hard, boring classes, or not a good professor, or late nights, where you really have to have a why in order to motivate you to choose the discomfort to do the paper, right? In high school, it's different because we have the why, which is to get into the college, right? And that's what everybody's why is, for the most part, if you're in a kind of college prep environment, right? And when you get to college, everybody's got a different why, but if you don't have one, or you don't feel like it's something you can really lock into, and by your why, I don't mean a concrete plan.
Right.
I don't mean a step-by-step plan you have to have. But if you're in a fog, you need a little bit of clearing of the fog to know that I could go in this direction and feel pretty good. I could go in this direction and feel pretty good, or I could go in this direction and I could feel pretty good. I don't know which of these ones, but I've narrowed it down. I know what I don't want, and that's good.
Right.
I think a lot of students discount the benefit of knowing what they don't want, and they think, I don't know what I want. But they are actually a lot further along because they know what they don't want, and that is
Absolutely.
actually beneficial. That's actually a lot of times where we start is where do you not want? And then, so I work with students to help them kind of figure out what's meaningful to them in terms of problems in the world. I talk a lot about what problems are you interested in solving, which can kind of feel like a grand question, but actually when you break it down, you start getting into conversation with students in college and high school, I use this too, like, what problems in the world that you see around you, either maybe you've experienced, your family's experienced, or you just see in the world, like kind of capture your interest. And what captures your interest is going to be different than what captures somebody else, but that's a really good starting point. Like, for example, is it more of like medical things because maybe something in your family has experienced it? Is it more environmental because something you've seen or witnessed? I had a kid who his town flooded and his house flooded, and it kind of got his wheels turning about like flood zones, the environment, the bigger floods. This has never happened before, right? Like, and that was super interesting to him. I mean, I care about flood zones. I do. I've never had but that is not that doesn't get my wheels turning. No. Somebody who's dealt with a parent with Alzheimer's or a grandparent, and this is where their brain somehow finds a connection with. And then I'm like, first of all, that means something, and let's go in that route and see it. Let's explore. And then the second thing that we talk about a lot about is like how you're wired. And I use a career assessment tool called the Sparketype assessment, which anybody can do free online. Takes 10 or 15 minutes, sparketype.com. And I did the certification in this assessment because I found it very simple, easy to use. A lot of the career assessments give you like, a 30-page report.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't even want to read this. And it's too much. But this Sparketype gives you there are 10 different Sparketypes. And the Sparketype means it's like your inner impulse to do work in a certain way. So it's all about work. It's not extroverted, introverted, communication styles, all the things, which are great. But sometimes that can kind of be overwhelming. But the way that you're wired to work. So then what I love to do with my clients is we talk about the problems they're interested in and the way they're wired to work. So for example, the kid who was interested in flooding, right? Of course, this comes from, a lot of it is like his dad's a contractor, right? He loves problem solving. He sees his dad problem solve all the day. This is one of the archetypes, is problem solving. And I'm like, whether you go into urban design or you go into like even landscape architecture was something he was thinking about because so much of it had to do with, trees 100%. And flooding and, building a parking lot and then they took away so much soil. All this stuff. I don't know. This wasn't, this is what he was getting interested in. And, or maybe it's like, public policy even was a direction then. I'm like, who makes the rules and the laws about where you can build and all this? And you have to, or environmental science, the study of weather and all the things, right? And from there, we started generating, these conversations that really got him excited. And most importantly, so excitement is important, but most importantly, he started to be able to visualize himself in some of these settings, roles, industries. And now he's actually thinking like, hey, I could actually make an impact. And I'm like, not only make an impact, you can make money because people, all the cities need all the help.
And you can love what you do. How crazy is that?
And it's so personal to you because you've experienced, you know what it's like as a family to be flooded and not have a lot of, money in the bank where, you can just no problem deal with the situation. But then also now your family worries every time there's another storm, right? Like this is a big deal. And anyway, so for this kid, this was something that really helped him start to realize that like, his major, he was undecided at the time, so he didn't need to shift anything, but he really then from that conversation, it was a couple, but started going towards like, okay, what majors does my college have that feel like, okay, so he started to research environmental science. He started to research, there was a public policy class. There was a what was it called? Can't remember. It wasn't an urban design or city planning, but it was something related to cities. But anyway, he started to research all these things. And, this is his second semester, freshman year was this past semester. So he has time, but now he has a different set of classes that he's going to go try out for next semester, fall semester of his sophomore year. And it also helped him to, going back to the time management stuff, like the classes he was currently taking, once he started getting a little bit excited about possibilities, he realized that the classes he was taking now, he really needed to do well in them in order to have the GPA he wanted to be able to do these other majors and to potentially apply for, a study abroad, or, to be able to reach the level that he wanted. Now he had a little more focus. So I really do think that the career planning and the future kind of long-term planning really impacts the day-to-day decisions about do I do my work now, or do I do it tonight at 8:00 when come 8:00, 9:00, you're exhausted, or friends are playing video games and you'd rather do that. Like
100%. Do you find a lot of kids when they get to that place that what they've already started as a major or isn't that far off, or it's an easy pivot? Because it's still in your interest wheelhouse, right?
Yeah. A lot of times it's a very easy pivot, or it's just the addition of a minor, or maybe it's the flip of a minor to a major, and something that they've been doing already. I don't think students really pick majors randomly. They pick them because they do have it. They're drawn to it in some way. Some students, if they're really junior, and they kind of are farther along, I think it's like then a matter of taking some classes or trying out a minor maybe in something else and feeling that they've really added kind of a little more breadth to their academic experience. And that just gives them that little extra thing, right? That then when they're going to think about jobs or potentially interview or internships, right? They feel like they have a little bit more, a little bit more to talk about. Honestly, that's what it is. Absolutely. It's a little bit more to talk about.
Well, I was gonna say, I think, what we tend to do is get into a habit of telling kids, you always have the option to change your career, right? You can get this degree, do a job if you like it. And if you decide down the road you don't like it, it's okay to change, which, by the way, it is absolutely okay. But that removes, now that we're having this conversation, some of the why, right? Because if I'm in school and I'm studying and I'm like, well, I'm not even sure I'm going to do this forever anyway, like that almost negates that whole thing. So I do
Totally.
It really is important for them to have some sort of feeling or passion or excitement about what it is they're studying.
That is such a good point, Laurie, because, what I also explained to them, I'm like, I'm asking you this question right now at your, let's say this kid was like 18, right? I'm like, I'm asking you what's important to you now. It will shift. Your problem that you want to solve will evolve. So when I started right after college, I had no idea what I wanted to do, hadn't really done any career work, exploration, graduated. I was like, oh gosh.
Here I am.
I'm like, later is now, because I was like, later, I'll figure it out later. And I was like, oh dear,
here we are.
Later is now. And I did kind of some of this work internally, and I was like, education is always where I have gravitated. I never thought of myself as a teacher, and then, but as I kind of immersed myself in the world of education, I really became interested in college access. That was the problem that really intrigued me from the start. Who gets into college? Why? Different groups. How do we make it easier for underrepresented groups to get to college? How a college experience, a college degree can just change a whole trajectory of a family, generationally, generational wealth. All of this stuff. I had never been exposed to it. I started reading and researching, and the achievement gap, I had never heard that term before. Right. And I was like, oh my gosh, I just started to research and read, and this was the first time really, I had my major in college and I was interested in that, but like truly my own independent learning, like I want to learn about this problem. And I became very into it. Then once I was in that world, my problem shifted. I started to become very interested in the problem of college persistence. How many kids go to college and then they leave college for a whole host of reasons. And so my problem shifted and therefore my career shifted. But I think anchoring your decision making around your career to this question about the problems I really care about solving, you will evolve. It won't be the same, but you have to, and the skills you're going to need with each different iteration of it is so exciting because then you get to start bringing them in. And so I had my counseling degree because I became a counselor, a school counselor, right? And then I realized that I really wanted to work with college students on persistence. And for me, my Sparketype, so this goes back to how I'm wired, is the one-on-one coaching work. It's called the Sparketype. It's called the advisor, right? So I went and got a coaching certification to get those skills, and now as I've been in this in a couple years, I see the desire. I want to grow in different skills. I really want to do some more specifically ADHD coaching training, right? I have all my books about ADHD and stuff. So I'm learning even more so I can help my clients even more in that way. I'm doing some additional career certifications because I want to keep adding these skill sets in. But, having that framework of the problem that I want to solve in the way that makes sense for me to go at it, I think really helps because like my sister, she's young, she's a kind of a good years younger than me. Like she was considering a job recently. She's 25. And this, she's benefited from my coaching that I've bestowed on her. That she's always my subject case. She's been my guinea pig all along. She's so great. But I'm always like, go back to it. Does this job you're considering, does it get at the problem you want to be working on? And she had two choices, and one of them really sounded good. It was work she could do. She was excited to do. They wanted her, but at the end of the day, she wasn't really working towards the problem that she wanted to solve. And the other job, which I think was a little bit less money, she'd really have to learn some new things. So it felt like a little bit more daunting. Right. But they saw the potential, right? And she was like, in the end, this feels like it's getting me closer towards working on that problem that I feel most connected to. And
that's huge.
And yeah, it's huge. It's huge. And she's working her tail off, but in the end, she's connected to the why. And who knows, again, it will evolve. That's just how we grow. So
that's so awesome.
I like that
so
framework.
your target client would be really freshmen and up.
Freshmen and up, and really like even the 2-3 years out of college, once they've kind of been in a couple work roles, if they need help with time management, I can definitely help them, and I can help them with the career stuff. But at that point, a lot of young adults need like a little bit more targeted of a specific career coach. So I have a great friend. She was actually at the conference too, Christine. Fine if that's where you're feeling like I don't know if I'm in the right job. But a career coach specifically, is going to be probably more helpful. I'm really the rudderless. I'm like I don't know, I'm lost and confused and like there's this fog and I don't have systems or a framework in place to help me move forward. Right. That's me. And that's really like, freshman year of college to those first 2 years out of college. That's my sweet spot.
Well, and that's the other thing I always tell kids is that when I'm talking to a college student about coaching, I'm like, this isn't just about school. Like the demands of life are only going to increase. And how you manage that is important. And so if we can get some systems in place now for you to manage the demands that are upon you now, imagine how great it will be as the demands increase and you just take them in stride versus all of a sudden having a complete meltdown. So, trying to convince them this is not a school thing. This is a life thing. Yeah.
I was just texting with one of my guys who's now working in his, first professional job. And we worked a lot on executive function, emotional regulation, and really building like a calendaring scheduling system. The skill of asking for help. This is a skill. This is not just something you decide to do one day. It has so many different points in this executing on that skill of asking for
Right.
help. And now when he's in his professional world with a manager, right? And he has ADHD, he has an anxiety disorder. Like, he's got things that he's now a lot more aware of, and he can anticipate when he's going to need more support, how to ask for that support in advance, how to ask for clarification
Wow.
in advance so that he can manage the deadlines he has, okay, with control, so that he doesn't get into an overwhelm cycle,
Right.
and then feel like he can't ask for help because he didn't do it 2 or 3 days ago.
Absolutely.
So these
That's awesome.
skills that truly came out in the last 2 years of college are, and he's still working on them. He's not perfect,
Sure.
right? But being in the professional environment, it requires another upgrade of the systems, but the foundation of, because college is much more like professional life, right? Than high
Absolutely.
school was, right? So, but because there's just so much less feedback, but than you get in high school. But in the professional world, right, you have the bigger environment of, you could get fired, right? Like
Right. The consequences are huge.
The consequences are huge, and you don't get grades. Like, he's like, I just want to know if I'm getting an A or a B. I'm like, oh yeah, there no more grades. That was really
Yeah.
hard for me. I was like, I just want
Yeah.
a grade. I just want to know.
Tell me how I'm doing.
Tell me how, exactly. Even now, I'm like, no, I don't want
hard.
grades on, like, from my kids on, like, dinner.
No.
They'll tell me, they're
Oh,
like,
gosh,
oh,
no.
that was a mid dinner. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I don't need a grade from you. But how do you interpret feedback from a boss or feedback from a manager
True.
is different, and it requires this same skill of evaluation and not making the feedback mean all the negative things
All
about
the negative
yourself
things.
of, like, I shouldn't be in this job, my manager hates me, I can't do it. Or the flip side, which is, my manager's an idiot, they don't know anything, they're
Yeah.
terrible. Either way, you get yourself into this cycle of complaining and, feeling.
You hate your job.
And then you don't even do a good job. You don't
Right.
even, and then you're like, oh, no wonder then no wonder the manager's feeling like you can't keep up with the work, or
That's why I'm not getting promoted.
that's why you're not getting promoted. So it's this skill building that, yes, there's so much trial and error, and you're going to learn it whether you have a coach or not, right? But I think especially if you feel like you want to work on it. So, a lot of students could definitely, I think everybody could benefit from the
Absolutely.
coaching work, right? But not everybody wants it. But for the student who is like, I want to figure this out, I know I could be doing it better, but I don't know where to start or how to start. I want that motivation.
Right. And a little bit of accountability.
And I want that accountability. I want somebody to teach me how to evaluate what I'm doing, not the parent, and not it being from your parent.
No, that never
Because
goes well.
they'll evaluate you all day, right?
Right. They're gonna tell you what you're doing wrong. No problem.
Yeah, and they'll tell you what you're doing right, even if you don't believe them, right? So
This
a
is
lot of
also
times,
true.
students feel like, oh, my mom's always telling me I'm doing a great job, but I know I'm not.
Yeah. What else is she gonna say? She's my
I
mom.
know. Yeah, exactly. So
No, this is so true. And as parents, we just want to fix it anyway. So we're going to give them a quick solution instead of letting them figure it out on their own. Whereas with a coach, that's what you're doing, is you're helping them develop a plan without telling them what to do. And that's a huge difference.
Right.
You're not fixing anything. So,
And they
I love
really have
that.
to develop their own plan. I mean, I don't have the solutions.
No,
I don't have the strategy that's going to fix everything. You have to
No.
figure it out, because it's literally based on how your brain is wired. So I'm just
Absolutely.
helping you to understand the wiring, and you can see your wiring play out week to week. And so that's why we just kind of, it's like watching tape. It's like when a sports team
Right.
watches tape from the
I love
previous
that.
week or the previous
That's a good
game.
analogy.
Yeah. And it's hard to do that on your own. It's really hard to watch your own tape by yourself. Eventually you get better at it, right? Like as a coach, I do a lot of self-coaching, right? So I'm trying to evaluate myself each week, but I have my coach. I have a coach,
Right.
So because we always have our own blind spots for good reason. Blind spots are helpful, right? But sometimes they can be a little bit of, but they can actually end up being a roadblock. And so, having somebody help you at a good pace where you're able to handle it, to be able to start to look at some of the things that you might not be noticing on your own.
Love it.
And so that's the real benefit of the coach.
I'm a fan. If there are students out there that are interested in your services, best way to find you would be through your website, I would assume?
Yeah, definitely. Go to the website and, schedule a call. It's a free intro call, and student can schedule it. Parents can schedule it. The question is just to see, hear how it's going. And sometimes just the call, just the intro consult call in and of itself can be really helpful. So
Sure.
You don't have to feel like, I definitely have to know if I want to do this before you book the call. It's just helpful to talk through.
To explore the options.
Yeah.
Well, perfect. Well, I'll make sure there's a link to your website in our show notes.
Great.
Thank you for taking time out of your day to be with us.
Oh, it's
I am
nice.
a fan. All I'm thinking about is I have my own kiddo in college who I'm a little concerned career-wise, so
Yeah.
we may have to talk later about him. 'Cause
Great,
I'm not
great,
sure
great.
My philosopher.
Yeah.
I'm like, what do you do with that?
I know, and it's so, I love the philosophers. I love our humanities.
good.
We need them. We need our humanities people, just like we need our STEM people. And especially we need men in humanities. So
The deep thinkers. So
We need
awesome.
them.
Well, thank you so much. I
yes,
appreciate
you're welcome,
it.
Laurie. I appreciate the
Listeners,
opportunity.
thank you for joining us today. This was awesome. If you have questions for me, feel free to reach out. Let's talk learningdisabilities@gmail.com. If you have suggestions about future episodes or just questions about any of the topics we've discussed, I am happy to answer those. Laura, thank you for being here, and I hope everyone else has a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much for joining us today. In our show notes, you can find information about today's talk, as well as links to resources and other episodes. If you have questions about today's talk, have ideas for future episodes, or just want to stay connected, you can contact us through Diagnostic Learning Services on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. So, let's keep talking learning disabilities. This podcast is sponsored by eDiagnostic Learning. You can find more information at www.ediagnosticlearning.com.